Hello, everybody. It is Marlene van Rooyen, and I am joined today by our digital manager, Ufensi Sifolo, and we are going to unpack a couple of questions that we've had from our clients and audience around digital platforms and social media. Hi, Ufensi. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Marlene. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you? It's awesome to have you here with me. Yay! I have a friend today, guys.
I think everybody knows me by now, but
This beautiful lady, I've asked her a couple of questions that we've had from clients, and we want to really try and sort of just fancy. We want to, give them some information and help them out a little bit in terms of what you know and share your knowledge and what we've done and gotten right with our clients and readers. This would be relevant to anybody that sees this. So this is for architects, these are for developers, these are for manufacturers, suppliers, etc. So first, let's crack on with the biggest digital platform, obviously, and people's number one digital asset, probably their website. So talk a little bit around websites. The query that we've had is one of our clients said that they're spending a massive amount on Google AdWords. That's the one, and they've seen a decline in their audience, massive decline in their audience. And the second question that we get a lot, or the query that we get a lot is, yeah, but I spend a lot of money on my own website. So why? So let's first, should we look at the website first or the digital platform, the Google AdWords?
Okay, let's start with the website first. So the thing is, with every company, like your website is like your CV. So it's something that if you say I'm Marlene, I'm from wherever, the first thing we're going to go look at is your website, because we're trying to figure out who are you, what's your background. And what I've noticed is a lot of clients do spend a lot of money on their websites, and they will get like the best designers and developers to design the website. But is it appealing to your audience? Remember, a website needs to have the most important stuff is your contacts, your background, and a brief of like what you can offer. So sometimes it's a little bit too much. You find there's a company that has 20 employees and they've decided to list all the employees on the website. And it's not really things that people want to see. People just want to know, are you a real company? Where can I contact you, and what do you offer me? And that's mostly what you need to give people. Also, the colors you use in your website, like there is too much going around. I'm going to move on to the more simpler website. So the look and feel of your website is actually very important, and people don't they don't pay attention, because a lot of people are going for aesthetics and they want their websites to be colorful and pretty, and it has to have all these pictures and all these words. But depending on what industry you're in, some things are not necessary, right? So that's the first thing when it comes to your website. And then the relevant information as well. If I am, for instance, a person who is selling water, there is no need for me to then have information about bricklaying on my website. So the confusion sometimes is that people think the more I put on my website, the more people will just flock onto my website. But then it gets confusing, because we're like, what are you talking about? All we really want to know is the water that you're selling, but now you're giving us other information. So that is the main issue. And then it touches also on the AdWords. So remember, with everything in life, when we all start doing something and we all start doing it in the same way, we're not going to get the results that you're not going to get the results that you were getting if when you started doing it and it was only you doing it. So if I am with Google AdWords, you need to choose keywords. So someone, for instance, same example, who's selling water will go with mineral water, clean water, fresh water. Those will be their keywords. But how many other people are using those keywords? And what's making your keyword stand out the most? Because if me and you are using the same keywords and we're paying the same amount, Google is not biased. It's not going to say, oh, we like Marlene, let's choose her. It's honestly just going to be a 50-50. So now we're sharing those AdWords because we're paying the same amount of money. And that could be why most people will then start seeing a decline, because it's not just you who's doing it. So personally, for me, not to say that Google AdWords don't work, they do work, but you need to do your research in terms of the AdWords that you want to use. And being unique in a place where everybody's doing it is a bit difficult, because at the end of the day, if I'm selling water, my main keyword is going to be water. I can't change it to juice, because then my keyword is going to pop up on an ad saying juice, but when people open, it's going to open, people are going to see water. So that's another thing that also happens, that people tend to get desperate because there's so many keywords flying around and you want to be unique, that you just end up randomly picking words that have nothing to do with your industry. And then it also, Google will then move you to the bottom again, because then it's like you're kind of selling a false dream here. Okay. So that's mainly the thing that's happening. It's
so they've recently in this decline, and it could potentially be that they are not changing the budget, and they're not revisiting some of the keywords that they have, and therefore the decline in the Google AdWords, and therefore the decline in the website activity. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I'll also
the other thing that I found is a lot of people, because they will use jargon in their Google AdWords, and that is not necessarily what people search for. And the simplest example of this, and we are talking to the simplest example of this that I've heard, is somebody that spent a lot of money on acoustic, the word acoustic, as their Google AdWord, and they realize, one, expensive word, and two, that's not what people search for. They will search for sound barrier or sound insulation, but they won't necessarily search for acoustic when looking for that specific product, and therefore they won't get the traffic that they're wanting, and they pay so much more for it. So that's also a tip, guys. Please be sure that what people are searching will lead them to your product, not what you call the product, but what they're searching for. For instance, speaking of web traffic, our web traffic has grown, what, 20-25% in a month? So tell me more. Tell everybody more.
So one important thing is to constantly feed your website with information, right? People love to know that you know more about what you're talking about. So if you are a doctor, you constantly want to feed people with medical knowledge, so that people can interact with you in that way. Sometimes people don't want to call you to find out stuff. They just want to go onto your website and find new things that they can read up on and just like grow from there. So feeding your website. So I realized that in the past month, we've been feeding our website a lot more. Also, I'm going to put it, it's putting in different things. So we're not always going to put on the same article about the same stuff. But if you're focusing on different people, like 1 minute it's about roofs, and 1 minute it's about floors, and 1 minute is about plumbing, then you get all these different industries at one spot at the same time. So last week sometime, I think it was on Tuesday, if not Wednesday, I'm just not sure, I actually went onto Google Analytics and I wanted to see how many people were on our website at the specific time. It was at around 2 o'clock, so people are at the office supposed to be working, but we had over 30,000 people on our website at the same time. And this is because different information and it's different people. So you're not putting out the same type of information for the same person. So you don't have your audience is broad enough that you can put out all that information, but also making it interesting for, if I'm not interested in plumbing and I was generally there for roofing, but that article was so interesting, I want to read the plumbing one as well. You know what I mean? So I think with us generally, it was just, we fed our website a lot more and we broadened our topics as well. And it also just goes along with other digital platforms like Facebook and Instagram. I mean, you need to lead people to your website. Not everybody's going to go into Google and type in building and deco. So you need to feed people information from all over where they can find you and lead them to your website. But it needs,
I think that was that culmination and that golden circle, that space together perfectly. And now we know how to do it and how to replicate it. And get great results. Actually, we had like 500,000 page views last month on the website. So that was enormous for something that is quite technical and that's not as consumer focused necessarily, though we do get some consumers on it. But you touched on something that we're also enormously big on, and that's Facebook, where we have 850,000 followers. So let's talk a little bit about Facebook. What are your suggestions for using Facebook in this space for the architects, for the manufacturers?
I think Facebook has moved from just being a social platform where people just send out information or socialize with friends. It's really become a business tool. But also with Facebook changing every day, the first thing is you need to study it. You need to try to keep up to bar with all the changes, because you think you know something today and then tomorrow it's like totally different. So for me with Facebook, it's firstly, you need to study your audiences, especially if we're talking in terms of Facebook ads. There's a difference between a Facebook post that everybody sees, and these are the people that are, so these are the 850,000 people following your page that will see that post. And then there's a Facebook ad that you specifically target to people all over, even people who are not following your page. So building that audience is, first, you need to take time to build that audience. It's not just a matter of, I'm looking for females in Pretoria who sell rugs. No. You need to actually say, what is the result that I'm trying to get? Am I trying to push sales? Because if you're trying to push sales, then you have to think, then I have to also add in my audience that I want to target businesses or people who will use my rugs or whatever. So building audiences is it takes time. And I think with us, something that we have really mastered is our audiences. Our audiences have been built to the point where right now, we're building on. There is nothing that we're not starting from scratch. We're building on. We've got the right audience foundation. And that's the first thing you need to have. You need to study your industry and create that audience with time. But like, once again, it's not an overnight process. You need to literally start from first campaign, build until the second, up until you get to your 40th campaign. Only then will you have the right audience, because as you grow or as you go along with it, you start chopping, changing, and see this didn't work, that works. But Facebook also helps you. As you're building your audience, it literally shows you on the side how many people you're bound to reach. So listening and actually reading the tips that Facebook is giving you also helps quite a lot. But once again, like I'm saying, it's not an overnight process. And I think with us as well, it took years for us to get to the audiences that we have. And that's why we can get the results that we're getting.
So somebody would say to me, right? Let's say I have a flooring company or a walling company. I have a company and I supply in this industry. I have my own Facebook and we run that, and we run our ads through our own Facebook. Is there any benefit to them leveraging other Facebooks and other groups and other platforms?
Once again, yes, you have your own Facebook, but do you have the right audience? Remember, on your Facebook, you have your target market, you have your audience. So if you are a flooring company, you're going to have people who are interested in flooring, and that's that. But if you are, for instance, coming to people like us, we have different industries under our audience. And you might think that all you're trying to get is people who's going to buy the flooring. But what if there is a developer out there who is building a massive mall and needs your flooring? So for me, it's like, you can definitely have your own Facebook with a very big following, but your audience is what's important. And with an audience, once again, you can't achieve the results overnight. You can't.
I think there's two critical things that you touch on. The one, obviously, is the results that come out of the audience that you have, also how you've built up. So it's an intelligence that's been built up and built up and built up over time. I mean, we've built up this Facebook group as well as our website over years now. This isn't something that we started in the past 2 years and we've really grown this over years and years, and tweaking and knowing and understanding. And like you said, Facebook and all of the digital platforms, but mostly I think on the social media platforms, there's so much change every week on a daily basis. You get people going on Facebook and saying, whoa, it looks completely different now. But leveraging other platforms. And I want to tie this in with the website as well, how critical it is to have your own website, because as you say, this is like the front of shop, right? This is where people will find you immediately. If they're looking for you, if they've heard about you through other channels, this is where they're going to go and look for you. And to talk about how should people use other avenues? I'm a big proponent of, you can't just fish in your pond and think you're going to catch bigger fish. No. You've got to fish outside of your pond. How does that translate and cast your net wider, obviously? Because people will generally they'll buy less and less, or they move on, or they become smaller, or they're busy with a project for 2 years, so they're not going to buy your product again in 2 years. So I'm a big proponent of casting your net wider. How do you think that translates to the website and your digital assets as well? Spend a lot of money on your own, but also outside of your own?
I think collaborating is a very, it's major. You need to show that you know more than just where you are. Like, you need to show that you can work outside of your own fence, and you collaborate with different people. And with things like Google and Instagram or whatever, or Facebook, it's also become like almost like a popularity contest, and the person who knows the most will get the most traction. So like I'm saying, if all you're giving out is flooring information, because granted that's what you do, then Google is not going to trust you the one day when you're talking about walls. They're just going to think, okay, where did this come from? But if you list yourself as a person, as a publisher who knows it all, almost like what we deal with all of it, then you have a wider net. Then you have knowledge in everything, and people trust you a little bit more. So it's become also like, it's like when you go to school, like, you're going to trust the guy with the master's more than the guy with the diploma. So it's almost like one of those things. And in order for you to get a master's, you have to work through the years and you have to gain that knowledge. But collaborating with other people and other brands is definitely one way. And collaborate with people who have the masters. There's no use collaborating with someone who has a diploma like you. Go to higher points, because then it makes you look better and you're associated with a bigger brand. And I mean, Building & Deco it's known, like, as soon as it pops up, people don't ask what it is anymore. People know who we are. So that's another thing, that you want to kind of associate yourself with a company or a product that you don't ask what Colgate is, you know exactly what it is. And that for me is very important, that I don't want to look at your brand and still ask, what do they do? Because then I don't have time to go find out what you do.
So we've got a ton of options that we can offer people in terms of campaigns and year-long campaigns, etc. If you guys want to talk to us, more than welcome, obligation free. We'll do a consult with you and see if there's a fit. But if we're not a fit, I do really suggest that you have to spend money on your own things, but you also have to, on your own assets and your own digital assets, but you also have to look at where else you have to be spending money. Let's take a silly example. I love using our platforms as malls, as shops, and say, okay, well, Woolworths can't just have a head office and send everybody to their head office to go and buy a loaf of bread and a ciabatta and the chops for dinner, and the same with Checkers. They have to buy real estate where there's audience and traffic. Okay, where there are people going to come. And it's so important to buy that real estate in the right places where you know your people, your shoppers, and your buyers and decision makers will come. And then it still has to look right. Woolworths can't put up a shop in a massive shopping center without the signage, the billboard, the shop fronts, etc. They can't have it all boarded up and hope someone's going to open a side door and come in and shop. So super important that even if you have your own assets, You have to look at a portion of your budget to go towards leveraging other assets so you can grow your net, you can grow your pond, and so that you can find fatter fish and different fish to feed the family, right? Any other tips you want to leave everybody with, Fancy?
I think just to add on to the example you just made, I mean, Woolies in themselves have so many other brands that they have, and as soon as you walk into Woolworths, you don't question the quality of a certain thing that they have because of the name that they have built for themselves. So my thing is, yes, you have a great product, and yes, you have a great platform, and you've done so well on your own, but always try to put yourself in an umbrella that can help you grow a little bit more, you know, if not double the size. Because going back to the Google AdWords, if we're doing it the same way and there's no change, you're not going to get better results. Instead, you're just going to decline, because that's how the internet works. It doesn't just keep you there. At some point, they're like, okay, you're boring, and then they push you down because that's all you're doing. So I would chop and change things, play around with your words, play around with your content. You're not always going to succeed, but eventually you will then get to where you want to be, because your audience will also tell you if something is for them or it's not for them. So if you're not someone who puts out videos, put out a video and see what happens. If you're not someone who writes articles, write an article and see what happens. Don't stick to the norm of thinking this is what my audience wants, because your audience is changing, times are changing, people are reading more, people are on their phones more, people are constantly on the internet. So always feed people with new information, and that's the only advice I can give you. Try to be as different as possible. And unfortunately, I know creativity and that type of side of things, if I am like a major developer, I don't have the time. So it's very important that you then collaborate with brands like ourselves that can actually do that for you while you focus on your expertise.
Oh, Fancy, I really love this. Thank you so much. We should do this more often. I'll get some coffee and everything. I really appreciate it. If any of you would like to get in touch with us, feel free to mail us and we can have a chat with you, look at your assets, see what you can do. And these are just a little bit of tips for you to help you and see how we can serve our audience better. And I think that let this spark something in you. Have a think about it over the weekend as well, and chat with send it on to colleagues and talk to them. And maybe you have different ideas come out that can translate into a very cool campaign and really cool strategy that you can just bump yourself up, because the digital arena is super cluttered at the moment, and it's going to continue to be that way. So thank you, Fancy.
Thank you. Bye.
Have a good weekend. Cheers.